Imagine this. It's 7 o'clock in the evening. You've just left office. You're on your way home, looking forward to unwind and relax, perhaps enjoy a succulent meal with your family. But suddenly, you get a call. It's your manager. Well, there's been a crisis at work, as always. A colleague has now had an emergency, so you've been asked to come in and fill in for them. What would you do? Well, some would say no, while some of us would perhaps comply. Reluctantly drag ourselves back to work or log in online, fearing a pay cut or even being reprimanded or perhaps even being overlooked for promotions. I'm sure most of you have been in such a situation, but what if I tell you that you could legally say no? In fact, even refuse to turn up beyond your work hours under a new right, a right to disconnect. Disconnect from work after you've left and refuse unreasonable out-of-hours contact. In fact, look at this map. These are the countries which grant you this very right: Belgium, France, Ireland, Italy, and Australia. Meanwhile, the UK and the US, they too have proposed similar legislations that are yet to be passed. If we speak of them individually, let's tell you what happens. In Belgium, it mandates that businesses with 20 or more workers have a company-wide policy outlining the right to disconnect. France does not make it illegal exactly for employees to contact other employees beyond work, but gives employees the right to ignore such communication if they deem it right. If a company is found making an employee work beyond or over his work hours, then they could be fined up to 3,700 euros. Imagine that. Similarly, in Ireland, guarantees that employees do not have to work beyond their agreed upon hours, but it also recognizes that certain emergency situations may require contact outside the work hours. And lastly, Italy, that also mandates the right to disconnect. That came in around 2017. However, it mostly applies to remote working beyond the hours which are agreed upon in writing. But what about India? Does India have a similar law? Well, not really. But surprisingly, in 2019, a right to disconnect bill was indeed introduced in India, but it's yet to gain any legislative traction. However, there's still a lot of buzz around it. Given how overworking has become deeply ingrained in many of the sectors across India, especially if you're in the IT sector, in healthcare services, definitely in the media industry, or the many MNCs which are operating in India. It's normal for a lot of us to work way beyond our designated office hours in these fields, and sometimes even recommended, or should I say, even glorified. But do we need to work more to accelerate our country's growth? Can we afford to disconnect and ensure that India still shines? Well, seasoned veterans say that the right to disconnect could lead to a decline in national prosperity or even dull the edge which drives breakthrough achievements in developing economies such as India. The second argument is that the right to disconnect could possibly lead to excessive leisure, which in turn could slow down productivity in many of the fields. The third argument is that it could impact customer service, especially in sectors where rapid response can make a big difference between a successful and a not so successful brand. And of course, let's not forget, in India, given the size of our population, if one person disconnects, there are 10 others who are willing to connect back and prove themselves out and outdo others in the rat race. Well, that's it. There are some disadvantages of working extra as well. The young lot is often worried about long-term effects, the repercussions of it on mental health and work-life balance. They say that the right to disconnect gives them some downtime, lowering the stress levels. Argument number 2, employee satisfaction. Employees say that when a company respects their personal time, they feel more valued, more driven to work. And the last argument, no extra pay in many of the cases. So employees do not receive any extra remuneration, then why work extra? So what's the way forward? Should Indians have the right to disconnect, or is it not the need of the hour? Well, the choice should be for Indians to decide. But until then, companies and bosses not implementing such a rule should perhaps lead by example. For example, if they themselves are not working extra, then perhaps they shouldn't ask their employees to do so. They should also ensure that their employees are not overworked or overexploited. At the same time, employees should ensure that they don't take their company for a ride, consistently turning down requests to work a little extra, to go that little extra mile for the company. Yes, hustle culture may be detrimental. Yes, you shouldn't always be trapped by the clock, but neither should you be trapped in the leisures of life.